Shalom, family, and thank you so much for joining us for this week's weekly news update. It's always a pleasure and a privilege for us to get together, and it's been a wonderful experience so far as we've done these every week. And one of the nice things about this is it allows us to keep ourselves from getting too caught up in some of these headlines. They can be quite overwhelming, especially as we see the day approaching. And so, one of the things that we like to say around here, for those of you that might be new, and we do have a few of you that are new, we like to say we want to be informed without being overwhelmed. And why we say that is because that's the enemy's intention. He wants you overwhelmed, he wants you to be in fear, he wants anxiety to rule over your decision making. And that is why it is so important for us to have um, balanced understanding, to have good counsel, to have wisdom. This is why Elohim provided us wise wisdom through His anointing, through His people, really, because He moves through His people. He always has, and He always will. And so, thank you again for joining us. Those of you that are joining us from all over the earth, it really is our honor and a privilege to host you and to sit with you. And for those of you that may be new here, we do have a website that we use for all of our news stories. And again, this is a labor of love put out by Remnant House. And we are thankful for those that share and, and bookmark the location. So thank you for that. And here you'll find all the stories that we cover over on our weekly news updates. And we go back a while, guys. So if you need to go searching for something that we've talked about, there's that handy search bar right there. And of course, this banner will always take you to the latest broadcasts that we have. And so, again, just a reminder. And on that note, let's get into the news. And in fact, that is true. Fear does create panic. Thank you, Pastor Paul, for that. And as a matter of fact, that's exactly what your enemy wants. He wants you to move in fear and anxiety. And that way you multiply your errors. So, this is why we need to be informed without being overwhelmed. In tonight's top story, China is now directing its largest military increase since the 1930s, guys. And this is foreboding, especially with a incoming administration that we know is very, very different than what we just had. So China is directing its largest military buildup since the 1930s Nazi Germany basically era. And experts are warning, and they're citing a Pentagon report, which is indicating that there's a lot going on in China. It is conducting the largest military buildup since the Nazi Germany era. And one expert warns, after a new Department of Defense warns, that Beijing's operations include bolstering weapons and psychological warfare. That's something that we need to be aware of. And that's something you guys keep picking up, don't you? You can see their influence in the media. And in a piece for The Federalist, Chuck DeVore, Chief National Initiatives Officer at the Texas Public Policy Foundation, referenced the Pentagon's annual report to Congress and warned that the United States has spent $5.4 trillion on its war on terror and futile nation building, while the Chinese threat has grown. And I have to agree. What a futile waste of resource, if that's what you wish to call a promissory note, that has gone toward absolute nonsense for quite some time. And so we're seeing a real change in posture and in policy. And it's not going to be pretty, folks. So some of the things that we're seeing coming are brutal, especially if you live in China, if you are listening to us from the Far East or have family in that area. Well, I would imagine that you are a little concerned about some of the developments that you're seeing coming out of China. Remember, there's good people living there, and not all of them are part of the government, right? They're just regular folks like you and me. And they are being subjected to some amazing things. Now, remember, China was a very, very heavy-handed control country for a lot of these things you see coming up. And now you're seeing that they're building new detention centers all over the country as Xi Jinping widens his corruption purge. So China has built or expanded more than 200 specialized detention facilities. You're going to see this in other countries as well as the tide turns against former controllers. And detention facilities nationwide to interrogate suspects ensnared in Xi Jinping's widening anti-corruption drive. A CNN investigation has found as the Chinese leader extends his crackdown beyond the ruling Communist Party to a vast swath of public sectors. So the trap is being sprung. That which was planned for now is finally happening. And I believe this was a well organized, some call it a sting. Some think that it is some type of ongoing exercise. There's some truth to that. I do believe that there is, in fact, a bit of subterfuge and sleight of hand going on throughout the uh, things that are happening there in the East. And so there's a tremendous amount of warfare, psychological warfare. Somebody put a comment in the about the drone, the smoke and fog, and we'll probably be addressing that next week. But my suspicion is these drones are doing more than just flying around looking for something. Now, getting back to this, World War III fears are now being again stoked. We saw this last week, guys. So this keeps, you notice that they keep dropping certain things into the narrative. Like they don't let a week go by without dropping this into your head, as if we need to have this in our head all the time. We don't, but they keep telling it to us as if, shouldn't this be the State Department? Shouldn't the military be, but no, they're letting citizens know as if there's something we can do about it. World War III fears as U.S. is warned, prepare for Putin's land grab to reestablish Soviet Union. Utter nonsense, folks. Leaders in the U.S. and Europe have been urged to prepare for conflict with Russia as a deal to end the Ukraine war will not put Putin from will not stop Putin from trying to take further territory. And World War III fears are mounting after the West was warned to prepare for Vladimir Putin's land grab. I love these terms they love to use. They've been doing this since the 1600s. U.S. and European leaders have been told that the Russian tyrant, not old, is expanding. And he may be a tyrant, but I just love these little things that they, I don't even know. Okay. And he will halt his expansion plans if he is offered a deal to end a war in Ukraine. A lot of this is just blubbery, guys. Just nonsense. They got to cover what they're doing. And what they're doing is very, very big issues. They're dealing with some very big problems, things that you're starting to slowly notice, but they keep distracting you with all this other nonsense. And here they're raising the stakes because they have to, folks. They have to keep distracting you in every possible way from the thing they're most afraid you're going to notice. We'll talk about that here in a moment. But now you're seeing the theater of operations in Eastern Europe start to get more complex, and countries are making their decisions. This is becoming a fork in the road. And folks, now you're seeing thousands. I don't know if you guys knew this, but they're sticking British soldiers over there. So that's meant to cause outrage in the West. Have a few British soldiers die and make it graphic. If they can pull that off, then they can create a lot of conflict. And so thousands of British soldiers to take part in NATO war games on the border of Ukraine. What could go wrong? Thousands of British troops will join a 2-month-long exercise in Romania, rehearsing rapid deployments to counter Russian threats and showcase NATO's defense readiness. Okay. So again, we are continually bombarded with theatrics, and again, more things to put us on the edge of our chair. And I do believe that this is not accidental. It's not incidental. And I do believe that it is feeding into certain narratives to invoke certain fears, pre-distributed fears based on sometimes false doctrines and false notions, but those fears are real. And so by triggering them, for example, a movie called Outbreak, and then you release a bunch of monkeys in North Carolina, you might trigger the fears of people who watched the movie, even though it was bunk science. So again, a lot of things are just, again, I think psychological operations is a good way to put it. There's a lot of things going on that are psychological operations. And Turkey is now moving in the world scene a little bit more aggressively. So this is something we're keeping an eye on, again, from a biblical perspective, because Turkey is directly north of Jerusalem and of Israel. And so this is important for us to take a note of. And Turkey is to ensure security beyond its southern borders starting from 2025. So again, lots changing right now. Don't think this is incidental. This is coordinated with the election of Donald Trump. There's some things that are being coordinated. Recep Tayyip Erdogan said Turkey upheld bond of brotherhood and helped the press once again emerge victorious on Syria. So it will ensure security beyond its southern border and eliminate terrorism threats emanating from these regions starting from 2025, said President Erdogan, speaking at AK's Party 8th Ordinary Provincial Congress in Balıkesir province. Erdogan says starting from 2025, so why not starting now? Why waiting until, what are you waiting for in 2025? I don't know, something happening on January 20th, 2025 that may be a trigger point? You guys decide, okay? And we will ensure security beyond our southern borders, particularly regarding the issue of terrorism, eliminating the threats emanating from those regions. And unfortunately, they may expand the definition of what is, in fact, what they are saying they're after, right? So this is why you have to be careful with some of these things, because the definition can change. The technology, the law enforcement, the apparatus may not change, but the definition of who the target is may change. That is what's dangerous about these things. And Turkey and Syria are now becoming a exclusive economic zone. And so the treaty is threatening that they're putting forth the last couple of days is threatening the sovereignty of Greece and Cyprus. So this is moving at an international level in a very high pace. Not even 1 month has passed since the rise of al-Qaeda regime in Syria, and we're already witnessing its undoubtedly Islamic terrorist nature, starting with allowing ISIS terrorist prisoners to escape, as well as turning a blind eye to beheadings, torture, assassinations, robberies, and humiliation of Alawites and Christians. And so this is where I believe you're going to see a lot of the action. Again, policing is trying to keep civility, but the forces that are being unleashed are deadly, and they are quite they need to be oppressed with force, because once loosed, as you can see, they begin to do great harm. And in Israel, which of course is a central component of this entire thing, the Palestinians business people are seeking to boost their trade with Turkey, which again further connects Turkey with the internal area or internal operations of Israel. Why is that problematic? Because we have scripture that warns of armies coming against Israel or coming into Israel. And so they would need a reason, or they would need an interest, a financial interest, a business interest, a protective interest. An interest in protecting innocent lives, for example, would be enough for an army to say, if you're going to keep hurting people, we're going to come and respond. So Turkey's been threatening this for some time now, and it did not appear that it was going to be effective. But now it's gone on a campaign. So it was in Cairo, Egypt, and of course Syria, and now dealing with the Islamic gatherings of congresses and so forth. These folks are starting to circle the wagons, and they're coordinating their effort in an economic way. So they're not fighting the war conventionally. They're not going in and just guns blazing. They're saying, okay, you want to do that? Fine. We're going to isolate you here politically. We're going to isolate you economically. We're going to start to do war with you, or we're not going to trade with you. We know where to hurt you, because you're vulnerable economically. You're vulnerable in terms of supply. They cut off all of the available shipping into Israel and so forth. So this became very complex very quickly. And in an international world where we're all interconnected, war's starting to get really stupid. Just saying. Did Israel explode a small nuclear bomb in Syria? And again, Turkey now has an interest in Syria, right? So spike in radiation, experts say, was, of course, a report that came out. Reports have added that the European Union's radioactive environmental monitoring found that the amount of radiation increased in Turkey and Cyprus hours after the intense blast, pointing toward a small nuclear attack. So nuclear level weapons have now been used in accordance to this report. In a step that has shocked the entire world, the IDF carried out an airstrike on the weapons depot on Tartus, Syria on 16 December 2024. Through the massive strike, Israel reportedly destroyed the Scud missile facility located in Syria. However, reports are speculating that the damage caused by the strike was more serious and a small nuclear weapon might have been used by Israel. Here are the latest details. And so they're going to give that to you. And of course, you're welcome to read this on remnantwatch.com. But I think what we're seeing is a escalation, folks, because once one, and you knew they were going to try to do that. I mean, that was easy. So here we go with an attempt to, again, further distract you from what? What are they trying to distract you from? I mean, what is the big deal? I mean, what is the root of all evil after all? And what are they trying to get you distracted from? I mean, I can't imagine what they wouldn't want you paying attention to so that, they could just keep on playing these games right in front of you, but you aren't paying attention because you're distracted by other things, right? And so look at these words being used by the Treasury Chief. And I want to remind you, and I want to just touch on this for sake of all of my brothers and sisters that have some age, right? That have been around a while. And if you've been around a minute, well, then this is nothing new to you to see the Treasury Chief or the Federal Reserve people come out. But they're usually very measured in their words, aren't they, guys? So look at this. What are we seeing here? We're seeing her say extraordinary measures need to be used. What? That's pretty scary language. Okay, extraordinary measures may be needed soon to prevent nation from defaulting on its obligations, Janet Lennon told Congress. U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Lennon said the federal government will hit its debt limit as early as January 14th. Oops, not quite to the inauguration, folks. Not quite there, unless Congress takes action or the Treasury implements what it calls extraordinary measures to avoid default. They're willing to sacrifice whatever they have to save themselves. Who do you think? And people are trusting these folks. Okay, people are trusting them. And the debt ceiling thing, they actually have until January 1st. Okay, and without further action, which they may very well take it. Usually do at the last minute. But the point is that this is what's being distracted away from, folks. This is the real 800-pound gorilla in the room. They're getting exposed, and all of this is being exposed. The light of further review. Many times people think, oh, that was something we did in the 70s, no big deal, as if it won't be reviewed. Really? All kinds of things could have been done in the 70s that we might rethink now that we have more clarity and we can see where you were going all along. Okay. And so now that we have public ledgers and other things out there that can give us some indication of just how bad this fraud really was, well, that's changing the conversation. So stay tuned, folks. 2025 is going to be an interesting time period for these conversations. I wouldn't want to be a central banker. Let's just put it that way. All right. I don't think they're going to fare too well in some of those conversations with countries that are going to be explaining why they're suffering and was that artificially induced? Great questions to ask. As a matter of fact, the United States is now suffering from serious economic drawback, and part of that is a result of changing economic ecosystems. As a matter of fact, the retail time period where we had big malls and big crowds out there in retail establishments is really starting to change, isn't it? Macy's, Big Lots join other U.S. retailers in shutdown of thousands of stores. This isn't just one or two here or there. This is thousands. Macy's, the largest department store chain by sales in the United States, is set to close 65 underperforming locations by March 2025 as part of a broader strategy to shut 150 stores. There are zero expansion plans, or about a third of its operation by 2026. The move will eliminate thousands of jobs and follows an ongoing trend by retail closures driven by the shift to online shopping and more cautious consumer spending due to inflation or the dollar collapsing, basically, higher interest rates, and crushing levels of household debt. And retailers across the U.S., including Big Lots, 7-Eleven, Family Dollar, and Walgreens, announced thousands of store closures in 2024. An October 26 CNN business article titled "Consumers Reach Their Breaking Point, Forcing Retailers to Shutter Stores at a Worrying Pace" noted major retailers have announced 6,189 store closures so far this year, already outpacing last year's total of 5,553, according to Coresight Research. Chains are on track to close the highest number of stores in 2024 than any year since 2020, when the COVID-19 pandemic decimated the industry. And so what is happening here? Well, it's getting more and more difficult to find places that the currency they're on is going to accept. Folks, things are changing fast, right? What good is it to have something you can't use? Ask those who had a trunk full of Confederate dollars. I'm telling you, folks, if you think that's beyond them, you are mistaken. Just ask the people that were in some of these fintech companies and where their savings are and when they went to look and what happened. It's becoming quite a nightmare in the banking sector that we're watching. And it's not us. We're not making up stories. It's just reading what they're telling us and reading the reports that are coming out. And they're quite concerning because, again, a generation ago or 2 generations ago, there were higher responsibilities. They were more dutiful people. I don't know. Something has changed. And what we have now is a lower quality level. And unfortunately, it's not carrying the day. The economic situation is going to change for companies under the new administration. TikTok is going to be affected by the incoming administration. And TikTok is responsible for a lot of people who are making income at home, remote income, using for traffic and other things. So Trump says the fate of TikTok should be in his hands when he returns to the White House. And approximately 170 million Americans use TikTok. So it is now entrenched into Americana. And President-elect Trump says he should be the only one to make the decision on whether TikTok can continue operating in the United States due to the unique national security and First Amendment issues raised by this case, he said in an amicus brief on Friday. Trump's argument comes in an amicus brief supporting neither party, filed Friday, weeks before the Supreme Court is expected to hear oral arguments on January 10th, 2025, on the law that requires a divestment of TikTok from foreign adversary control. I will say that it does seem that this particular platform is quite addictive, very powerful, and does seem to be a information gathering device as much as it is an app. So I do think that there is some valid concern about these apps that are invasive, but I do think also they should expand that to include all apps that are either spying on you, collecting data that you didn't know they were collecting, or in any way transmitting data that you didn't authorize. And so there's a tremendous amount of that that's already going on. So if TikTok is going to be picked on, which is great, let's pick on them all. Frankly, I think you're all a little poorly advised if you're using your phone for certain things. The phone is the least secure device you own, just so you know. All right. And now we're starting to see these kinds of things. So we're starting to notice that they're stepping up. Remember a year ago, we started to notice the stories about bird stuff and hitting cow stuff. Remember? Well, now China is stepping up its monitoring of emerging respiratory diseases, and they're just basically moving into what we can detect may be a similar situation that we saw a few years ago. Chinese Disease Control Authority said on Friday that it was piloting a monitoring system for pneumonia of unknown origin, with cases of some respiratory diseases expected to rise through the winter. Okay, so the move to establish a dedicated system is aimed at helping authorities set up protocols to handle unknown pathogens. Now, the problem with these things is they begin to start justifying the protection of the greater good, if you will, at the expense of each individual. So individual rights are usually the thing that is sacrificed in these situations. You have to ask the question, is it worth it? Is it worth trading off those privileges, those rights that are granted to you by your creator, just to live in their mochaccino world? But I digress. And so we're starting to see a lot of things that are starting to fall apart in their mochaccino world. And frankly, I don't think we're going to want to be there for much longer, especially as their planes are falling out of the sky. Great tragedy, deadly plane crash in Kazakhstan sparks conspiracy theories that Russia did it. Listen, folks, it doesn't matter who did it. The fact is, the plane is on the ground. An Azerbaijani airline crashed in a fireball Wednesday near the Kazakhstani city of Aktau, and the internet is abuzz with theories as to what caused it. A Kazakh official says 67 people were on board and 38 people died. That is very tragic. And we've seen several cases of airline things. Now, I remember talking to Mindy about, several years ago, because something that people tend to forget is that airplanes were only supposed to be in the sky for 20 years, and we have entire fleets out there for a lot longer than that. And so the stress factors and the various metal fatigue issues would eventually start to manifest. And frankly, I think you're going to see a lot more of this rather than less. So a lot of what is happening is they're trying to extend these fleets because of the economic impact of replacing them, but they were made to go only a certain length of time. This is why you're going to see cover stories like this as they're trying desperately to make sure their fleet stays afloat. American Airlines resumes flights after a nationwide, quote, technical issue. And again, the technical issue briefly disrupted American Airlines flights nationwide early last week. And again, I do believe that you do need to be very careful and be led of the Ruach before jumping on one of these, because it's going to start to get dicey. As a matter of fact, we just saw this story, which only makes the point. United Airlines dead body was found lodged in a wheel well of United Airlines plane on Maui on Christmas Eve. So this is really sad. A dead body was found lodged in a wheel well of United Airlines plane when it arrived in Maui, Hawaii on Christmas Eve. The body was discovered in a landing gear wheel well of Boeing 787-10, an area that can only be accessed from outside the plane. So somebody tried to stow away. How sad. What a terrible tragedy. But I think it's reflecting, again, the mental state, or lack thereof, of the world we're in, and the degradation of mental capacity that we're all observing. And so it's very dangerous to observe, but nevertheless, we need to be aware, again, sober and vigilant in this hour. The demonic is definitely manifesting more and more. Speaking of manifestation, one of the things that we're seeing a lot more of, and many of you are starting to pick this up as you're hearing more of the testimonies and petitions for prayer from people who are experiencing serious adverse medical effects going on in our world. And now doctors are worried over a sudden surge of rib-cracking lung diseases as they reach a 13-year high. Whooping cough cases 70 times higher. Highly contagious whooping cough has surged to levels in the U.S. not seen in over a decade. Pertussis, it's a potentially fatal respiratory infection that causes such severe coughing, it's been known to fracture people's ribs. Recovery from coughing fits creates the whooping sound in the chest. So this is a very dangerous thing. And 32,000 cases of whooping cough in 2024, a massive increase of 6,500 cases confirmed in 2023. Did somebody ask me about fog? Did somebody ask me about fog? About fogs in New Jersey? I don't know. Are they connected? I don't know. It's interesting, though, don't you think? One might wonder. I mean, after all, since we're a bunch of speculating people, we may as well speculate on that. What could possibly be going on? And they're going to continue to drop this narrative, folks. So if you think this is going away, well, it isn't. And I keep an eye on these things. This is what we do, 10,000 foot view, right, guys? We sit up here in the heavens and we sit and watch their plans, what they're doing. When they start saying things like this, and now it's like it's inching closer, right? Inching closer. I'm not even going to dignify that with the reading. Okay, but you get the point. You see what's going on. You're not stupid. You're smart people. You're sharp. Okay. And so this is going to continue to be fed to you. Just be aware. This is why being mingled, or as the scripture says in Revelation chapter 18, come out of her, my people. Don't be mingled with these. There's a judgment falling on some that will not fall on others. I mean, to be far enough away from that which is going to be judged so that you are not included in that. And things are changing in college ranks. I wonder if Charlie Kirk is having his impact. I started to think Charlie Kirk is really starting to change some people, certainly probably impacting some parents who are wondering, wait a minute, what am I doing? Why am I? There's some parents that have spent a fortune to send these children to these colleges, and then what they got back was not what they expected. They're like, I paid money for this. So this is starting to change, which I think is actually, I mean, I don't mean it to be like I'm making fun of it, but I just think it's kind of cute that, you see all these videos with like Charlie Kirk asking these questions and all these, debates and these so-called college students that look literally like they don't know what they're talking about. So class dismissed, college expected to close as enrollment numbers tank. Colleges could see enrollment numbers fall to record lows over the next decade. And frankly, folks, I think this is a good thing. It's no big secret, the cost of attending a four-year college or university in the United States is out of control. And people have all this conversation about student debt has also not been good. It's almost gravity defying how the cost of college has increased relative to regular inflation over the past 20 years. And you can't even file bankruptcy, or you can't get rid of these student loan debts at all. That's why they're so quick to give those out. They won't give you a small business loan to start a new business at 22, but they'll gladly give you 50 grand to get in debt and go to school. Okay. So again, that feeds a narrative that continues down a road that they want to continue. But the schools are having to change because the atmosphere is changing. University of Iowa announced plans to close its gender, women's, and sexuality studies department. So colleges are starting to respond to the changing atmosphere. And I do think that, again, that is a good thing in some respects. I do think we needed to temper some of that, but nevertheless, these are not our solutions, but they do reflect shifts that are going on, right? So the atmosphere is shifting. The attitudes of people are starting to shift. That's important to note because it's going to affect decision-making going forward, right? So this isn't about going backward. We're not going in the past. We're going forward and need to be paying attention. As a matter of fact, one of the things that's changing immediately is some of the control mechanisms that were implemented during previous administrations, and that's a good thing, folks. So State Department's Global Engagement Center, accused of censoring Americans, is shutting its doors. I do think that some of that is a really good thing. The State Department has consulted with Congress regarding next steps, a spokesperson has said. The State Department's Foreign Disinformation Center, accused by conservatives of censoring U.S. citizens, shuts its doors due to lack of funding this week. So, in fact, in some of the reports, like Elon Musk, for example, has deemed the Global Engagement Center, GEC, established in 2016, the worst offender in U.S. government censorship and media manipulation, and its funding was stripped as part of the National Defense Authorization Act, the Pentagon's yearly policy bill. And so, thankfully, some of these things that were the apparati of former control matrices are coming down. And so that is a good thing. And unfortunately, we're seeing other things. And again, folks, like I said, a lot of what we're watching, I hate to call it intelligence tests, but unfortunately, it does look that way, doesn't it? There's some things that are very, very disturbing as we watch them. And how many have really been paying close attention? We've been certainly talking about this over the last couple of years, really, but more so this last year because we keep seeing more contact with the people and more effect on the ground. So the fruit of this is not, it's very, very problematic. The AI chatbots and the AI conversation things and all of these tools that are now being used. Well, an AI chatbot told this person to murder his bullies. And character AI gives Telegraph reporter posing as a teenager advice on how to kill another child and dispose of his body. How many know that that's advice we don't want the AI to be giving out to people? Okay. And the godfather of AI says it could drive humans extinct in 10 years. Professor Jeffrey Hinton says the technology is developing faster than he expected. This is the guy who created it and needs government regulation, as if the government is going to fix the thing that you couldn't fix, the developer, because the government makes everything better. Right, guys? And here, I got to get rid of this thing here. Artificial intelligence could wipe out the human race within the next decade. The godfather of AI has warned, especially if it gets into some of the technology or weapon systems. Professor Jeffrey Hinton, who has admitted regrets about his part in creating the technology, likened it to rapid development to the Industrial Revolution, but warned the machines could take control this time. The 77-year-old British computer scientist, who was awarded the Nobel Prize for Physics this year, called for tighter government regulations of AI firms. Professor Hinton has previously predicted that there was a 10% chance AI could lead to the downfall of humanity within 3 decades. Asked on BBC Radio's Force Today program if anything had changed, his analysis, he said, "Not really. I think 10 to 20 years, if anything. We never had to deal with things more intelligent than ourselves before." There's a debate as to whether they're more intelligent, but I can tell you this, they definitely may take on minds of their own, if you will, especially if they're being infused with demon technology. And so this is definitely a concern, right? Now, how many remember that we talked about this last week, or well, it might have been last week or the week before. I don't remember. But, with the new change of administration, Red, White, and Blue, Walmart, and Sam's Club, they're trying to get back in good graces, right? And so what did we notice? We noticed that they put shade on their competitor. They put some serious shade on them, right? Why? So that you wouldn't. It's interesting how we see this because again, recall reports that go to Costco, well, they should include Walmart as well. After all, they buy from some of the same people, right? So the FDA is raising Costco egg recalls. So again, isolating Costco. Wonder why. Anybody else got any ideas on why they're picking on Costco and not saying anything about Walmart or Sam's Club, which is literally identical? So don't you find that a little interesting? I do. I keep thinking that you guys are only picking on one side. Apparently, they're not on the in crowd. So FDA is raising Costco egg recall to the highest level over salmonella fears. Man, them eggs are dangerous. And the FDA has issued a category 1. Man, it's a cat 1. It's a cat 1, guys. It's cat 1. There's a reasonable probability that consumption will cause serious adverse consequences or death. And so hundreds of thousands of eggs sold at Costco's were part of a recall. Now there's a death warning on Costco because they're the only ones selling these eggs. Only ones. Just Costco. Okay? Just Costco. 20 ones. Just so you know. And I got a bridge to sell you in Brooklyn. So there's that. See, that's why you guys have to see through this stuff and not be so easily fooled. And now, this may be the reason why this guy says AI is going to destroy humanity in 10 years. Maybe he's looking at headlines like this. What do you think, guys? Maybe he's looking at this nonsense. Maybe he's looking at this depravity, this craziness. Inside the world's first AI sex doll brothel. Can you believe this, guys? I'm not kidding. I know. I looked at this headline and went, I can't believe this. I got to show this to the guys just so they can see how nuts this world is becoming. Wow. It seems that not even the oldest profession is immune from the threat. Prostitutes are now being replaced with intergalactic pleasure dolls. I kid you not. Many of us are terrified of AI will put us out of a job. It seems not even the oldest profession is immune to the threat. Are you kidding me? No. We've fallen down a rabbit hole, folks, and it's looking rough. It's looking rough. And the way they justify this stuff, right? So, they throw this stuff out there and just to let you know it's there. But then right when you're about to go, get that stuff out of here. And oh my goodness. And what is that? And right about when the women are about to just throw something at the thing. Come on, my sisters, right? Right about ready when you're about ready to do it. They throw this at you. AI spots heart conditions before sufferers have symptoms. Oh, just so you know, AI is awesome. is doing great things. You know, see what they're doing? They're throwing you that sort of dichotomy all the time. Artificial intelligence is trained to identify those at risk of developing atrial fibrillation. And it's being used to find people with heart conditions before they even have symptoms. Man, isn't that just great? Aren't you just thankful for AI? Right? So that's the rationalization that is being used. And that is coming at us because, again, they're going to be using various mechanisms to control. And so now, again, this narrative getting back to health, and health is a very dangerous area. We need advocates who are telling the truth in that space, not advocating for pharmakia. Anybody advocating for pharmakia or just signing prescriptions for folks, well, frankly, as far as I'm concerned, you're a conspirator with them. You may as well go ahead and join them. And how America lost control of the bird flu. So this is something that is going to keep becoming a story. So pay attention to these things, and they are important. There are physical risks, there are contamination risks, and there are proximity risks. When I see articles like this, you know what I think of? Revelation 18, come out of her, my people. Okay? So they're setting folks up for something, and they're going to continue to bring forth all kinds of headlines and things that will help strengthen this logical progression, this thinking process. You guys are not foolish. You know what's going on, and you can put two and two together pretty sharply. Speaking of New Jersey, somebody was asking me about, fog and things in New Jersey, and we'll get to. Hopefully, we'll be able to grab some stories. I like to let something new come out. I like to let my guys out there in the world who, the collective, if you will, get to work on it and then come back and view it again. Because usually after a few days, you get a little more detail. So we'll come back to that story, guys, for sure. We're going to come back to the fog. But speaking of New Jersey, there's more going on in New Jersey. You guys hear about this massive sinkhole that swallows part of the New Jersey interstate? What's going on with the infrastructure? My goodness. Okay, a busy stretch of interstate highway in New Jersey shuttered after a swath of the right lane and shoulder collapsed into a sinkhole. And this was huge, guys. Look at this thing. Look how big that is. That is my goodness. Look at that, guys. Whoa. The size of that hole, guys. Unreal, man. Unreal. Okay. That's a hole. Make a hole. That's a hole. That is a hole. Okay. And so, guys, that's the stuff that we're going to keep seeing. I think the sinkhole thing is something we're going to keep seeing. This portends of the judgment of Yahuwah. Remember that he opened the ground and swallowed up folks in the scripture. So this does portend judgments coming. And the earth is responding itself. And in fact, we just saw scientists were warning about an impending volcanic eruption that humanity, according to them, this just came out, guys. Okay. This just came out. Scientists are warning of an impending volcanic eruption that humanity is not prepared for. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. As if we didn't have enough threats, right? As if there weren't enough things going on. Oh, by the way, in case you guys are, bored, you're not capable of handling this a volcano thing, this threat, right? Earth faces 1 in 6 chance of experiencing a massive volcanic eruption this century, scientists warn. Humanity has no plan to address it. Such an event, according to climate professor Marcus Stoffel, could trigger climate chaos similar to the 1815 eruption of Indonesia's Mount Tambora. Did you guys know about an 1815 Indonesian Mount Tambora explosion? Didn't know about that? Oh, okay. Maybe that didn't hit your history books. Did you see that slow admission that something happened in the 1815? Yeah. The 1806 is actually quite an interesting year to go back and take a look at for those of you that are hint-taking researchers. Have fun with that. Okay. And now they're talking more about some of these extremes, right? So scientists are warning of an impending ultra intense Category 6 storm. What? I just saw this. I'm like, whoa. I thought we were through. I thought, we can kind of forget about hurricanes and storms like this for a while, maybe get a little 5-6 month break before we're back at this. Nope. Scientists have made a stark warning of an impending. So any minute now, I guess. Ultra intense Category 6 storm hitting the U.S. The prediction comes from an international team of over 60 experts. Cool. Who found the burning of fossil fuels has poured the equivalent energy into the Earth systems, heralding a dark new era of mega hurricanes from fossil fuels. That's the reason. We've correlated that. 60 experts. 60. Correlated that. Got it all figured out. These people just print anything. And they just really do. They print anything. And because nobody can check, and they know nobody's checking, and they know nobody's going to question these things, they get away with it, folks. They get away with nonsense. It doesn't even that has no empirical data. So understand that a lot of this is just manipulation. But if you know that and you're watching it and you say, okay, I don't have to believe whether the story's true. I don't even have to think it's even closely true. Here's what I have to know. They're moving people with it. That's what you need to know. They're using it. That's what you need to know. And they're watching the results. So we're getting back to, some of the crazy that you're watching and you're going to continue to see because people are literally losing their minds. Look at this. A Florida police delivery woman stabbed a pregnant customer. Yeah, you're reading that right. 14 times over a bad tip. The woman who ordered the Marco pizza had tipped $2. She discovered she was pregnant while she was being treated for stab wounds at the hospital. Wow. The delivery driver is accused of returning to Florida motel where a couple was staying and stabbing a woman multiple times this week after having been tipped $2 on an order. Came back and stabbed the person for a tip. Because that's logical, right? Because that makes sense. It's just a very logical thing to do. Just good common sense, right? We've reached into a time period that you are all going to wonder if anyone is still walking around with sanity because of the level of demonic that is being invoked and accepted. Back in the 1990s, we warned about the Harry Potters and the various things that invoked and brought in witchcraft and made it common. Now we see that even among the remnant, even among believers that are conducting or performing or acting in the forms of manipulation or witchcraft. Many pretending to have repented for witchcraft and then coming in only to gather people and again utilize witchcraft technique and witchcraft powers, if you will, for their purposes. And so again, folks, we have crossed over into a very, very dangerous time. And I would caution you all to find your fold and be together with those whom he has set apart for you. In a chilling video, it shows a New York City subway migrant worker, and he literally set a woman on fire. I can't push play on that, guys. Can't do it. Chilling footage has emerged of cops walking past the woman as she burned to death in a New York City subway while her accused killer watched from a nearby bench. Disturbing videos show a man identified by the New York Post as Sebastian Zapel Khalil, a 30-year-old migrant from Guatemala, sitting on the platform in Stillwell Avenue in Brooklyn after he allegedly lit the unnamed passenger on fire as she slept on the F train. Lit her on fire. Can you believe that? So, if you have any questions about the demonic activity, if you have any questions about how far we have gone in our society, what we've unleashed, what has now become the norm, what is now becoming commonplace, If you think there's love out there, if you think they're looking out for you, you think there's anybody coming, folks, they're at the point now where they're just hoping to keep some form of civility. They're hoping to keep the animals from getting too crazy. But this is getting to the point where you're going to keep seeing more degradation of the condition of humanity while demonic forces literally take over. Walk in unopposed because a whole number of generations have gone by with so many doctrinal lies and so much evil, these folks don't even know where to begin to repent. That's a sad, sad reality. And it continues to manifest. In fact, here's another story. And again, this is maybe why you're seeing this tide turning, right? And the atmosphere is turning because the results are coming in. And as the results come in, we see how stupid some decisions actually were. Little, they looked great, like great choices, great decisions. What a great idea. And then a few years later, the results come in and it's not such a great idea anymore. All right. Here's a good example of something that people thought was a really great idea. Let's go ahead and let this couple, yep, that's a couple. Yep, that's right. That's a couple. And let them go ahead and adopt. What a great idea, right? And well, look what happened. A gay Georgia couple will spend life in prison for sick abuse of their adopted sons. And the story is horrific. I can't read it. I read about halfway through and I was struggling with convulsing. Folks, we are there. We are seeing the demonic, the evil spirits that are running loose, the powers of these spirits, the organizers of these spirits, these controllers that they're using, these physical controllers, are loosing them with their words. This is what makes it very dangerous to be in the wrong place and to be what you are supporting or establishing. And this sick report, if you go read it, I'm telling you, I'm warning you, I'm not reading any of it because it's that bad. It's that bad. And so just be aware that this is where we've crossed over. I only share these stories, that particular one especially, just to say this is where, see, the results are coming in. And then as the results come in, they're going, that was not good. Those poor children, right? And so we knew that, you knew that, I knew that, but now they know that. So the world is changing. This is a good thing, but unfortunately it was at a lot of pain, a lot of suffering. And so, we have to be prepared for what is on its way. And again, I remind you that this warning keeps going out. So since they keep making this warning, I want to make you aware because they keep saying it. Now, it's not the first, it's not one, this is multiple articles. So what do we know that when we see multiple headlines in advance to look, we need to be aware. Mount Tambora changed the world in 1850. An Indonesian volcano exploded in the most powerful eruption in recorded history. Okay. What followed was a year without a summer. So many volcanoes have erupted since, and now they're concerned about those very same volcanoes that shaped our world. Folks, I do think this is a genuine concern, a genuine issue. And this again portends the days that are coming because he speaks of the heavens rolling back with fervent heat. Well, if you've ever watched a volcano erupt, it literally causes the peeling of the sky, the splitting of the sky going in both directions. It's almost as if the sky is on fire, and the volcanic ash and so forth. So that's one very already used by Yahuwah in the past method for judgment. Just think Pompeii as an example, right? And so we already know that this is not, wouldn't be unprecedented for him to use volcanoes for judgment. So again, a thing to be concerned about only to the extent that you pray and ask him where you belong, because all of us, he's made plans for everyone, and those who forfeit their plans, it's unfortunate. It is reality, though. As a house, we had certain things that we put aside for folks that then forfeited it because of their actions or their behavior their desertion, essentially. So, they get redistributed. Where did I learn that from? Right? My father. And so he's going to continue to pour barakah upon those who endure, those who overcome, those who get over themselves, get past their own personal issues, lay aside every weight, sin that easily besets you so you can run your race with patience and finish well before him. That, my friends, is what we really have an obligation to do. There's a lot of stories we covered in a short amount of time. And I want to encourage you again to bookmark remnantwatch.com and to continue to encourage our brothers and sisters to stay informed without being overwhelmed. Well, that's it for tonight. I want to thank you again for joining us for this weekly news update. It is always a pleasure and a privilege to sit with you for these reports. Thank you so much for joining us. Good night.